Before we start, I would like to wish everyone a happy new year. And first of all, thank you for the scientific for the Young Professional Forum of ISTM for giving me the opportunity to have a webinar session during this present for presenting a topic, and the chairpersons for chairing the session and sparing their valuable time for attending the session to all the participants. So the topic we will be discussing today is investigation and management of preoperative anemia. This will be the overview of my presentation, and so we'll go straight into the topic. So as we all know, patient blood management is a multimodal, multidisciplinary, patient-centered strategy aimed at minimizing the use of blood products and improvising the patient outcome. So it's a very well-known term in the patient blood management. When we see it has four modalities in it. One is interdisciplinary blood conservation modalities, optimizing the coagulation, patient-centered decision-making, and the managing anemia. So how does the PBM system works is whenever we take a decision in transfusing a patient, we need to evaluate the patient, have a clinical management with use of appropriate indication and trigger for the blood transfusion, and try to minimize the blood loss as much as possible, and optimization of the patient's own red cell mass. So in 2020, ABB came up with the whole funda of patient blood management as focus on your patient and not on the transfusion itself. So with this in mind and motto, and with having anemia is one of the modalities to be managed as a part of the patient blood management, here comes the topic on the preoperative anemia management. So if you go through, there were various guidelines by various bodies available for different strategy for managing the anemia in the preoperative setup, which we'll be going through in this following approximately 30 to 40 minutes presentation. And to have a note, there are various international bodies who are just focusing on patient blood management as such, like SABM, that is the Society for Advancement of Blood Management, or the NATA. Then ISBT also shares some data, and ABB as well from the transfusion perspective. So we all know that whenever we talk about the patient blood management, it has three pillars. One, optimizing the erythropoiesis, then bleeding, and then having the strategies how to have the minimum blood loss in the patient following a surgery. So to have the same in the as we all see, how do we manage the optimize the erythropoiesis in the patient? So it has various steps. It can be in the pre-operative phase, in the intraoperative phase, or in the post-operative phase. So today our focus of the discussion will be mostly across the pre-operative time. So why is this topic important? So we have a normal notion among the regular practice that we are not so much bothered about this preoperative anemia, because we assume that the severity of the anemia is due to the underlying disease, and once the surgery is done, the anemia will be corrected of its own. And this is one thought process. To add on to it, many a times the notion will be that assessment and treatment of anemia has a negative impact on the hospital personnel workload and is not so much cost effective. So is it like that, or there is something else which comes into the picture, is what we are going to look into. And we have our very own Fevikwik, that if the patient loses lot of blood intraoperative, or in the post-operative period, we have our blood transfusion easily available, and we go ahead with giving the blood transfusions to the patient, and is one of the most used component in every day-to-day practice in both operative or in the post-operative setups. So before we go into this, why a patient will have anemia in the first place? So we have a patient who is planned for some surgery, and what is its impact? So we have the patient with pre-op anemia, and also there is some perioperative bleeding complications. Then we give the patient a allogenic transfusion. So we have our quick fix always available with you, but it has shown that it has a detrimental effect on the clinical outcome of the patient, like it increases the morbidity, mortality, and the hospital stay. To what percentage? The hospital stay is almost 22% higher in patients who have received transfusion during or in the post-operative period. There is a higher risk of infection by 1.93 times. There is a higher risk of kidney damage, about 3.75, and high risk of mortality of 2.9. And the patient who has received one transfusion tends to receive more transfusion by 2.9 times. So we did see what anemia does if we don't tackle it. So what is anemia? So there are various definitions of anemia, but WHO has accepted this definition that the hemoglobin level at the C level is what will be considered as anemia. So from male and female, they are different. So for the females, it will be non-pregnant ones, it will be more than 12, less than 12, and for male, it will be more than 30. And the globally, if we see what is the prevalence of the anemia, is 1/3 of the global population is having some underlying anemia due to some cause or the other in our daily day-to-day clinical practice. So we discussed that there are two different anemia set points which are there. One is 12 and one is 30. So will we think that this anemia definition is applicable to all the patients across the setup, like both male and female? So the answer to this question will be in such a way that no. In case of females, we have like the females have a lower circulating blood volume than the men, and they tend to lose more blood than the males. So one of the two studies whose analysis is being done here shows that a woman tends to receive more transfusion if we don't manage than a male patient, and and we already know that the threshold for the woman is at a lower level. So few studies do recommend that to have a desirable preoperative HB of more than 13, irrespective of the gender of the patient, to be set in order to ensure a better outcome in the post-operative period. So how common are these preoperative anemias? Approximately, we encounter almost 30 to 60% of patients who are undergoing major elective surgeries do have anemia, and the prevalence can go up till 75% depending upon the comorbidities, the gender, the age, and the underlying pathology which is requiring the surgery for the patient. And the anemia is multifactorial if we look into it. So there could be the disease induced, it can be iatrogenic induced, or there could be some blood loss which is going on, or some kind of inflammation. So everything leads to anemia, and we need to look into each and every aspect of it in a very thorough manner. And what are the most common preoperative anemia? So worldwide, what the data have suggested is the most common cause are the iron deficiency anemia is commonest worldwide. Again, the parasitic infections like due to hookworm infestation, schistosomiasis, malaria can also lead to some anemia, some deficiency of anemia. Then obstetric and gynecological disorders and anemia associated with chronic renal failure. So these are the ones which are the most common anemias what we encounter in our day-to-day practice. So in a pre-op setup, how we are going to approach this case of anemia? So we have a patient who is supposed to go for some surgery, a elective surgery, and the patient is expected to lose approximately more than 500 ml of blood, or there is a transfusion risk of more than 10% in this patient. Then it will be ideal to do a laboratory workup and have a pre-hemoglobin threshold of 13 gram per deciliter. And based on that, we need to evaluate the patient whether the patient is having the anemia or not. Just 1 second. Anemia or not. And if there is no risk of transfusion very lower, then we can straight go for the normal pre-op procedures and proceed without the planning proceed for the surgery altogether. So how should we approach this? Screen for anemia should be as early as 30 days or minimum 14 days prior to the scheduled surgery, by which you have ample of time for proper investigation and building up the patient's hemoglobin. And so why this 14 days? And if there is one study which is from UK which showed that if we have elective surgery which is being posted, then what is their waiting time to get it operated is either 43 days between the listing and the elective surgeries, and between the pre-op assessment to surgery, it is 21 days. So we have some days in hand is what in at the end I want you guys to keep in mind. And whenever we approach for evaluating the anemia, as like with any clinical case, we need to evaluate the patient's history thoroughly before going ahead with the laboratory investigations. So why are we aiming to manage the pre-op anemia? Because it will allow us to diagnose the common causes of anemia. Always the common are the ones which we encounter in our every day-to-day practice rather than the rare ones. And whenever we work up such a case, do keep in mind the other strategies of patient blood management, which includes avoid the need for patients to return for another blood sample and draw CBC and samples for additional testing, to hold for additional tests if needed. So don't repeatedly sample a patient and introduce a iatrogenic anemia to the patient, and also try to eliminate the unnecessary studies, lab studies which are required to diagnose. So what one can do is you can go with a battery of tests in a tier level, like the first level and the second level, and then further based on the what you are getting a conclusive result, you can proceed further. So at the first level of test, what we need to do includes the CBC, vitamin B12, retic count, absolute retic count, and the retic hemoglobin. Iron studies, transferrin saturation, ferritin, iron, and iron binding capacity, and serum creatinine to know the kidney status. These are the few second tier laboratory tests which I have included. It may vary based on what diagnosis we are going ahead with. So this is a very comprehensive chart published in SABM, that is the SABM body. So where they have pretty thoroughly described, very comprehensively described how we are going to manage the preoperative anemia. So I'll take you through this whole chart once. So we have a patient who has a hemoglobin of less than 13. then we need to look into the MCV. And also if the MCV is less than or equal to 105, then do the retic iron studies and creatinine. If the transferrin saturation is greater than 20% and ferritin is greater than 100, then we may be dealing with some case of a hemoglobinopathy like thalassemia. Suppose the ferritin levels are low, then it could be a iron deficiency anemia. So we need to start the iron therapy either in a form of oral iron or in the form of IV iron, based on the time is what we got in hand, which we'll covering a bit later. Suppose the ferritins are not so low, then do the transferrin saturation, which is if it is less than 20%, then it indicates that it is again anemia of inflammation, or there is anemia of inflammation along with iron deficiency anemia. So do continue with iron therapy. Suppose it is not there, then look at the creatinine value and the GFR of the patient. And if it is coming low, then it will be indicating towards a chronic kidney disease and anemia due to a chronic kidney disease, and we need to approach a nephrologist for the further opinion, and we may have to give some erythrocyte stimulating agents for improving the hemoglobin. Suppose it is not, then we need to rule out the other causes of anemia. Do consider doing a direct antiglobulin test, haptoglobulin, LDH to rule out the hemolysis. If elevated retic count, and consider acute blood loss if there is also elevated retic count, and do take a consultation with a hematologist to rule out the plasma cell dyskaryosis or other primary marrow processes. Suppose your MCV is more than 105, then we are working on on a megaloblastic picture. And here also here you have to look at the folate. So if the folate is less, then give folate supplementation. And also look at the retic. If retic is again high, then we need to do rule out the other causes of hemolysis. And if there is a vitamin B12 deficiency test which is coming and which is again less than or equal to 300, then give the patient with vitamin B12 deficiency. If not, then it can be associated with look for other cells of the PS, like is there any pancytopenia which you are encountering, or ovalocytosis, which where you may consider of a MDS picture or something else in the bone marrow. So as I've already told, the most common anemia is iron deficiency anemia, which we encounter in our day, in the most commonly in the preoperative setup. So how do we tackle it? If we see, we'll first see this picture, then we'll go to this picture. So if we see in normal setup, what happens, there is a quite balance between the storage iron, the functional iron, and the transportation iron. But if there is an iron deficiency in the first phase, what happens? The functional iron, the store becomes reduced, the transportation is increased, but the functional iron content is remaining constant. Eventually, as the iron gets depleted, the storage iron deficiency, erythropoiesis happen, and here the storage is scanty, the transport is too much, and the functional iron is minimally available. However, in iron deficiency, there is transportation too much. We don't have any stores and we don't have any functional iron. So all these things will be indicated by some test or the other, where we are trying to find out which kind of iron deficiency we are encountering. So if we are doing the iron test and they are altered. So first and foremost, we do the ferritin. Ferritin, if it is less, it most likely indicates towards the iron deficiency anemia. Ferritin is within a range, and transferrin is all coming less, which is the transport iron. Then it could be, and you have the C-reactive protein of more than 5, then it could be leading you towards anemia of chronic inflammation with iron deficiency. And suppose ferritin is normal, but still you have anemia, and transferrin saturation is also on a lower side, and CRP is on high, then it could be anemia of chronic inflammation. And if everything is normal, do look at vitamin B12 status. If it is low, start the treatment. If it is normal, we need to look for other causes. Could be renal, could be endocrine, could be drug induced, could be some underlying malignancy, or for some causes we don't know yet the answers. So how do we approach the iron deficiency anemia in the pre-operative setup? So there are three approaches which few of the literatures have supported: the orthodox, the pragmatic, and the opportunity approach. So what is orthodox approach? Means I have to know that there is an iron deficiency 28 days prior to the surgery. I need to classify the anemia correctly and give a accurate treatment. And suppose I don't know what is the cause of the anemia, then I will be postponing the surgery, and I'm having a strategy that antihistaminic without the deficiency should be supplemented to allow hemoglobin optimization and fasten the post-op anemia. So this is the first approach. So if you see the pillars, so these all are the steps which are already written here, like the detect anemia, identify the underlying disorder causing the anemia, manage the disorder, treat a suboptimal iron stores, iron deficiency, iron of chronic disease, and treat other hematinic deficiency. So we have different strategies which we follow, like if there is a low pre-op hemoglobin level, and so we need to increase it to give 150 gram of iron to increase the hemoglobin by 1 gram per DL. Classical iron maximum absorption, how much it can happen is 10 milligram for a patient with hemoglobin of 10, and we need to give the treatment at least for 3 to 4 months. There is a more surgical blood loss, like more than 500 ml, so we can lose up till 250 milligrams of iron, which is equivalent to the iron loss which happens following a blood donation. And you have low iron stores, could be inflammatory induced, like hepcidin impairs or blocks the iron absorption from the intestine and iron mobilization from macrophages. And IV iron single dose at once will help in recover the iron stock. In the orthodox approach, so what is the grade of the data which is available is a pre-op oral iron supports us grade 2B, and if there is enough time, we should go for it. Post-op iron, there is not yet much recommendation. Pre-op IV iron is again grade 2B, being used for orthopedic, gynecological, and colorectal recommendations. And perioperative IV iron is again grade 2B, where in case of orthopedics, gynecologic, and cardiac cases, along with erythropoietin plus or minus, we can attempt. So these are in an orthodox attempt of iron supplementation. Then comes the pragmatic approach. So in pragmatic approach is just the contemporary of patient blood management. What here they mean to say is, if you have an opportunity as low as, let it be 14 days also, do try to give the patient some iron treatment in order to optimize their hemoglobin, rather than sticking to the concept of just 28 days, that if I am not having 28 days, I will not manage the anemia at all. So there were few studies which have done and which have shown that the anemia management has with the with the oral iron management therapy has helped in improving the anemia, and the transfusion rates have come down as low as 0% in few patients. The same thing is also being studied in colorectal surgery group, where also the transfusion rates have also come down to as low as 0 to the non-iron group of 2 transfusions, where they have shown that, give iron as low as 14 days also if it is possible. The last entity is an opportunity approach. which it says is, suppose we don't have time at all and we have just less than 2 days or 3 days in managing a pre-op patient with suppose for some surgery, then what we need to do is in such a short time go for some IV iron and with or without erythrocyte stimulating agents. So for this, there was one study of which showed that where they have included 547 patients, and where they compared the standard therapy perioperative iron reduced sorry where they compare the very short term perioperative IV iron with or without erythropoietin versus the standard treatment. And compared to the standard therapy, perioperative IV iron um, has reduced the blood transfusion by has reduced the transfusion by to 32.4% versus 48.4%, and the 30-day mortality was also better in the group which received iron than the one which didn't receive any management, and they have a shorter duration in the hospital. So they concluded that the very short term preoperative administration of IV iron with or without recombinant erythropoietin in major lower limb orthopedic procedures is associated with reduced rate of blood transfusions, lower hospital stay, and without increasing the post-operative morbidity and mortality in the patients. So we talked so much regarding the iron. So what irons we have? We have two options, either oral or IV. So oral, among the oral iron, it can be used when the correction of iron restricted erythropoiesis is what we are targeting to. And there are various preparations which we are available in the market. And for example, ferrous gluconate, ferrous fumarate, ferrous sulfate, and iron polysaccharides. And we do need to keep in mind that it takes 2 to 4 weeks to increase the hemoglobin, and the gastrointestinal side effects are a major key issue when we are using the iron as a oral option for the patients. So there is a lot of compliance issue among the patients. And what is the dose? We need to remember that the dose should be 40 to 60 milligram of elemental iron if it is daily, or if it is alternate day, it is 80 to 100 gram. And we need to assess over a period of 4 weeks, and then how much time we need fully. We need at least 3 months to fully replace the iron stores. They're cheap, of course, but the major compliance is an issue. So then I'll just show the various molecules which are available for the oral iron compositions, and how much is the elemental iron present in each. So we need to remember that suppose we are giving ferrous sulfate 325 milligram tablet, so it contains 65 milligrams of elemental iron in them. So what we need to remember in the back of our mind when we are prescribing these tablets to the patients. Coming to the IV iron, they are more beneficial for preoperative anemia. They bypasses the absorption tolerance and the compliance issue. And even in anemia of chronic disease, they work pretty well. And the maximum dose, we can go up till 1 gram, and they increase the hemoglobin over a period of 1 week time. So here they are categorized as high molecular weight and low molecular weight. In high molecular weight, we have the iron dextran, but it is associated with a major side effects as anaphylaxis, and it comes with a black box warning, which we have to keep it in mind. And the lower molecular weight, few new molecules which have been introduced are the iron sucrose, iron isomaltose, iron carboxymaltose, and iron carboxymethyl dextran, and which are much more safer to be used for. So we talked so much regarding the iron over these last few slides. So let's see that the previous studies which I have mentioned are of before 2015-16. So these are a few latest papers which have come up in a few many of the journals, and they are at the pyramid peak of a research review because these are the systemic reviews and the meta-analysis. So this is the latest one which came in 2021 in systemic review, shows that if you can see the forest plot here, it favors favors for the IV and iron than with the regular iron. And it was the title is the role of the perioperative iron support to correct the anemia before any major surgery. And the researchers showed that they have taken into account 3195 citation and 10 randomized controlled trials, which included 1039 participants, and the preoperative IV iron supplementation significantly decreased the allogenic blood transfusion by 16%. In addition, it all preoperatively hemoglobin levels increased after receiving IV iron, and at the follow-up of more than 4 weeks is much more better than the one which has the oral iron. And the concept that the IV iron will not be tolerated by the patient and there will be a lot of side effects. So this study showed that iron injections are not associated with increased incidence of non-serious or serious adverse effect across the groups. Yet another study. This is from the cardiac surgeries, and this is from last year. And this meta-analysis again favored towards usage of IV iron over oral iron for for improving the post-operative morbidity in adult cardiac patients with perioperative anemia or iron deficiency. Yet one more, this is on the orthopedic setup, where they have taken into account 10 studies, one randomized controlled trial and 9 non-randomized studies, where they have included 2178 patients, and this showed that 39% reduction in the risk of receiving perioperative blood transfusion with iron compared with no iron supplementation. And there was a significant reduction in the number of RBC units transfused with iron compared to with no iron difference, and the length of the stay was also reduced on an average to 2.08 days. Followed by iron, we have the other hematinics. So we need to also keep in mind to supplement the patient with vitamin B12, either as 30 to 100 micrograms per day for 10 days, oral, IM, or sub-Q. And this we need to take into account the vitamin B12 could be either a nutritional deficiency or some malabsorption disorders. Plus, we need to add the folic acid if there is a folic acid deficiency as well. So it will be 2 to 5 milligrams per day oral or IM. Moving ahead, coming to some erythropoietic stimulating agent. Yes, we do need to give them concurrent along with the iron therapy as well, but they have a major side effect as deep vein thrombosis. So we need to keep in mind that we have to give the prophylactic anticoagulation. But where you can use erythropoietin along with the iron therapy is anemia due to chronic kidney disease, chemotherapy-induced anemia, or HIV therapy-related anemia, or preoperative anemia correction before any elective surgery if you have an opportunity to add erythropoietin to it. So we have two formulations, Eptoin, which is approved for use in elective surgery, and darbepoetin alpha. And prerequisite, the hemoglobin has to be between 10 to 13, and there should not be any with high risk of perioperative bleeding, elective non-cardiac or non-vascular surgery. Dose, it is 600 micrograms per kg weekly for 3 weeks, and fourth dose on the day of surgery. And daily regime for patients with more than 2 weeks for surgery, 10 consecutive days, day of the surgery, and 3 days post-surgery. How fast you will see the rise in hemoglobin, it will be over 4 to 6 days. However, do keep in mind regarding their side effects, that is the pain at the injection site, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, headache, edema, fever, and hypertension, thromboembolic events, and due to increase in the blood viscosity and peripheral vascular resistance due to rapid rise in the hematocrit. We are giving so many medicines, only pharmacologically we are trying to manage the anemia. So do we still, as transfusion medicine specialists, do we still have a stand for the blood transfusion? The answer is very varying between across the surgeries and the patient group. Till date, we don't have any solid evidence that the transfusing the patient up to near hemoglobin level is beneficial. However, a systemic review show liberal transfusion to be either inferior or non-beneficial compared to the restrictive strategies. However, how low we can go, especially for these two surgical setup, we need to remember that in major cancer surgeries and in cardiac surgeries, do try to keep a trigger above 9 gram per DL rather than keeping it low at 7 or 7.5. So we discussed regarding the anemia in various forms, managing the preoperative. So do we have a role of anemia clinic or a iron clinic? How it will help and what it will do is we need to set up the anemia or the iron clinic as a part of the pre-anesthetic checkup, so we can have a tie-up with our anesthesia team and do try to evaluate all the patients who come for the pre-op. Suppose the patient is having an anemia, go deep and try to diagnose the cause of the anemia and what the reason for that. And if there is ample, if then based on the time, how much time is there, whether it is a 1 month time is there, 15 days time is there, or 3 to 4 days or a week's time is there, then we need to decide which iron therapy to start for the patient, whether oral, IV, or vitamins or erythropoietin. And suppose we are giving, we can also give the IV iron in the anemia clinic on OPD basis. However, we know that there is a black box warning for the anemia for the iron therapy. So we need to monitor the patient with properly with oxygen saturation, heart rate, and non-invasive blood pressure during the infusion, normally which is normally administered over 15 to 30 minutes, and keep it watchful for another 30 minutes afterwards. And we need to be prepared with the resuscitation equipment, and the trained personnel should be available to handle any adverse effect occurring due to the IV iron therapy. So whether the feasibility of the iron iron clinic or the anemia clinic is possible or not, this is a very recent paper I read in Transfusion Medicine, where a group from UK has established a anemia walk-in clinic. So what they do is, post consultation with the surgeons, the patient visit the anemia walk-in clinic. The screening for elective major surgeries where there is a risk of transfusion for more than 10%, or there is a risk of transfusion of more than 500 ml. So then they evaluate whether the patient is with anemia or without anemia. And based on that, they do a full iron profile of the patient, which include ferritin and transferrin saturation as well. So based on whether there is iron deficiency or iron deficiency anemia, they provide IV iron supplementation to the patient. Suppose the patient has different other forms of anemia, then they instruct the patient to consult cardiologist, gastroenterologist, or internal medicine for proper management. And this study was being done in 2019 in August, and in a major orthopedic setup. And they tried to evaluate two things as their primary endpoint. incidence of pre-op anemia, and the secondary endpoint were to include retic hemoglobin as a marker of iron deficiency and to see the red cell transfusion rate and in hospital length of stay and anemia at the discharge. So they included 104 patients, and the pre-operative anemia rate was 20.6% in this group, and iron was supplemented in 23 patients. Transfusion of RBC per patient was reduced from to 0.2 versus 1.7 in the control group, and also there was a reduction in the hospital stay among the patient, and then the retic hemoglobin was significantly lower in patients with iron deficiency anemia compared to the ones who just had iron deficiency or patients without anemia. So they concluded that it, it is feasible to have an anemia walk-in clinic to manage the preoperative anemia, and the study is showing that to include retic hemoglobin as an additional parameter to diagnose the iron deficiency in surgical patients. But we need more solid research into this. So how with this management of preoperative anemia is going to help a patient? It will improve the readiness for surgery. It will reduce the transfusion risk in the postoperative period. It will reduce the anemia and the transfusion associated morbidity and mortality for the patient. And it will help identify the other comorbidities among the patient. It will be effective in the clinical management of anemia, improves the outcome in other chronic diseases for like chronic heart failure, chronic kidney disease, inflammatory bowel disease, rheumatoid arthritis, and sometimes anemia is an indicator of an undiagnosed underlying disease process. Iron deficiency could also lead to a diagnosis of an occult malignancy. So we have covered the pre-operative optimization of erythropoiesis. There is one more question. In the post-operative phase, do we still have some role of managing the anemia? Then the answer to the question is yes. So what we need to keep it in mind is any major elective or non-elective surgeries where the blood loss is more than 500 ml or the surgery is lasting for 2 hours, at the post-op status, do check the patient's hemoglobin and iron status. If there is mild anemia post-op, then consider IV supplement, and or normal iron status, search for something else. Moderate and moderate status, again post-op iron deficiency. If the hemoglobin is less than 10, then again consider the supplement, IV iron supplement. Severe anemia, asymptomatic, give iron supplements. If symptomatic, give RBC transfusion followed by iron supplements. During when this is a pretty new topic for our country, so when I was going through the whole literature, so this is a food for thought for all of us. Do we have any data on preoperative anemia from the Indian setup? So no. So it's opens our mind to some new research ideas which anyone can come up with. Do it, because it's pretty interesting that how managing anemia helps in saving the blood transfusion, which is a very scarce resource, especially in these days of COVID pandemic. To conclude, preoperative anemia should be detected and classified and treated before any major elective procedures and while emergency cases are prepared for surgery. Good evidence for establishing preoperative anemia pathways, reduced transfusions, the length of stay to the hospital, high quality evidence of however effective outcomes are still awaited. And anemia should be treated with iron and erythropoiesis stimulating agents as appropriate, including hematinics. And blood transfusion should only be reserved for severely anemic patients, particularly with poor physiological reserve when time does not permit standard treatment. IV iron is safe. It reduces blood transfusion and hastens the recovery. A combination of preoperative iron and erythropoietic stimulating agent is justified for both elective and urgent patients, particularly for anemia with an inflammatory component. acknowledgement to my team of blood transfusion medicine at AIMS Nagpur. Before I wind up, we'll just, this is mostly an academic session. So these are the questions which I came up with my mind. This what could be a potential question, because this is a very much a fourth paper question that how you're going to manage anemia in a pre-op setup and what are the approaches you can take, and if you want to set up an anemia clinic, what should be your strategy, how do you go about it, and to add on roll up the transfusion practitioner, roll up patient blood management in the in this whole context of preoperative manage investigation and management of anemia. Thank you everyone for your patient listening. I will be happy to take questions